So this is sermon 2 of this series. What do we do now? We had that big push of 40 days of prayer, and it kind of came to an end. We had a great VBS, and then, you know how it kind of is. It's like Christmas is over at like noon. You're like, oh, what do we do now? You know, well, what do we do now? What do we do now? And so we're talking a little bit about that this week. It has sort of a baseball motif, and with that, I just kind of have this question at the beginning. It's like, have you ever met somebody with your name? Have you ever had somebody that had your name and you're like, oh my goodness, I haven't met somebody with my name. And that's happened to me some different times and stuff. But one of the times is this person right here that's coming up. He is Dr. Dan Russell, and he teaches at Penn State University. And if you have good eyes and you can kind of read, he's got a little handle there, and his nickname is Dr. Batman. And that's not because he dresses up at night and goes around beating people up there, committing crimes or anything like that. It's because he did his dissertation on the acoustic properties of bats. And what he figured out was like bats resonate at a certain frequency. And you can tell a good bat from a bad bat just by putting some sound waves through it. And so he did a dissertation where he's hooking up all these bats and pumping sound into them and seeing how they vibrate. And if they vibrate a certain way, he puts them into the good pile. If they vibrate not quite as bad, they kind of put it in a medium pile. And if they vibrate bad, he's like, oh, this is clearance. And what he found out is like, this is a very easy way to test bats that you manufacture. And so you come in, and if you're making these bats, and you're like, is this a premium bat? Is this a junk bat? I don't know. And Dan Russell said, well, you know what? You put it on the little thing here for a couple of seconds, let it shake, let the microphone pick it up. I can tell you if that bat's going to hit well or not. And it's kind of an interesting thing because he got hired at Penn State for that. You think, like, oh, that's kind of a crazy idea. And I love getting hired at Penn State because Penn State said, you know what, it's going to make up a lot of money. You know, I bet there's other stuff that he can do with that too. And it kind of has worked out. I know that I talked to him a while ago that he ends up right now, pickleball is a big thing. And he's like, you know, all the things that make bats, good bats, and it's the same principles are kind of true for pickleball. And I can tell you if that pickleball racket is any good, or if the ball, they do the ball's doing things. They said, so we can do quality control here to make sure that this stuff is really good. And the reason that Dan Russell teaches at Penn State, the reason he has a job, the reason his dissertation went so well, is because of this idea here, and that is, home runs are not really about swinging the bat harder. A lot of times you think like, okay, I'm going to swing the bat this hard. Oh, it goes 200 feet. Okay, I'm going to swing it 50% harder. Oh, it's going to go another 100 feet. Oh, I'm going to swing it 100% harder, twice as hard. Oh, it's going to go twice as far. If I can just hit it just a little bit more, I'll get it to go a little bit more. Home runs really don't equal into swinging harder. You can swing hard, but you have to hit the home run from the bat's sweet spot. And that's why when he put those bats on there and he made them resonate, if they resonated a certain way, he said, oh, this bat has a big sweet spot. If it didn't resonate at all, it just kind of just was flat, he's like, no, you hit this, it's going to feel dead. You give it, boom, it's dead, there's no sweet spot there. Hitting the ball in the sweet spot is the secret for the home run. And that's kind of a thought that carries through with what we've been talking about. We started in the first message, we talked about Mark 10:45. Jesus said, the Son of Man hasn't come to be served, but he's come to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And there's not, we talk about ransom, and there's not a lot of stories that you can tell that make it feel good. Usually ransoms don't end up well. But there was a funny story about a guy named Brandon Moss. He hit his 100th home run. It went over the fence just like the last picture there, and it went into the bullpen. And he went out there looking for his ball, but instead of finding a ball, he found a ransom note. And if you can read here, it says, if you get us these things, we're going to give you your ball back. Now, I know sometimes people are like, oh, no, you know, that wasn't the opponent, it wasn't the people that were playing. That was actually his own teammates, and they were just trying to do it as a joke. And so they just thought they were being so funny. They're like, we've got your ball, here you go. But the funny thing was about they wrote this list, and it was all Apple products. Oh, I'd like a phone, I'd like a tablet, I'd like a laptop, and all these things. And at the same time that they're doing this, Brandon is going up in front of the team. They're like, hey, how's it feel to hit that 100th home run? That's a big milestone. They said, hold that ball up. Let's get a picture of you with it. He's like, I don't have it. He's like, I wasn't looking for the ball, but all I found was this ransom note. And he kind of talked about it. At the same time, over at another place, Apple was having a meeting. And they were saying, like, hey, we got to write a speech for our CEO. And they said, did you notice that everything mentioned on that ransom note was an Apple product? Nobody wanted any Windows products. There's nothing else there. And so they said, oh, this would be so funny. Let's write it into the speech. And Tim Cook, who's their CEO, he said, oh, I've got one better. And so he called over and he got the baseball float over to him. And you can see him, he's at his speech, he's holding it up, and he said, here is the ball. Apple is going to pay the ransom, and we're going to give Brandon his ball back. And this was the first message for this thing, because we were talking about where do we go from now? And we said, listen, it's time to double down on serving. Serving has been a hallmark of what's been going on. And if we want to keep going, we've got to double down on serving. And that's what that verse said in Mark 10:45. It said, Jesus did not come to be served, but he came to serve. And to give his life as a ransom for many. But when you talk about service in the church, sometimes there's some confusion that goes on. And people think, I've got to do all these things to be good enough to go to heaven. But that's not really what the word ransom means in that sense. We could never pay the ransom. We could never be good enough. The only way for any of us to go to heaven is for Jesus to do it for us. And in this story here, it becomes very good from the illustration. Can you imagine if Tim Cook, the head of Apple there, walks up to Brandon and says, here you go, buddy. Here's that 100th ball. I paid the ransom. It's yours. It's free. Just take it and go. He could say, oh, now I'm going to do this myself. I'm an athlete. I'm a baseball player. I've got money. I'm going to do this and everything. That's not what he did. He just received it as a gift. And that's what we have to do as believers. We have to come. We have to come to Jesus and say, I receive salvation as a gift from you. You paid the price. And when you do that, now you're able to serve. You don't serve in order to get something from God. You serve because God has done something for you. And I thought that was just sort of the beginning. But we're going to stay right here. So we've talked about, we're in Mark chapter 10. If you've got your Bibles, you can kind of go there if you want. I mentioned it in the thing. The Wi-Fi password is very simple. If you're going to GBC Guest Network, the password is GBC Guest. It's the same name as it. So if you have that, I don't have my Bible on my iPad and stuff, so that's good. But we're going to be there in Mark 10. And I kind of jumped all the way up to 45, because that's really the solution that Jesus gives. I'm going to kind of go through it again, and this is where he ends up. And this is probably the most important verse in this chapter, in this story that we're looking at. But it's probably the most important verse in the book of Mark. When you look at Jesus in the book of Mark, you see somebody who is a servant. And so this verse really just, if you think the whole book of Mark, and in your brain you go, what's the book of Mark about? And you can get this verse, you're going to get it right. This is what Mark is about. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this verse. I've got the reference at the top, Mark 10:45. We'll say that together. And then let's read out loud all the way through to the end. Something about reading it out loud just really makes it stick in your head. So let's say it together. Mark 10:45. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Excellent reading there. So we're going to go through, and we're going to kind of boil the whole message down into one sentence, and then we're going to kind of unpack that here as we go through this. So the sermon in a sentence is that Jesus has a sweet spot that he wants you to serve from. The illustration at the beginning was Dan Russell at Penn State. His goal was to see if a bat has a sweet spot. And the better the sweet spot, the more money that they charge. Because home runs are not really about just swinging harder. It's about finding a sweet spot. And I think that same illustration is true in a church, in that it's not just about trying harder or sweating more and exhausting yourself, but it's really trying to put yourself in a sweet spot that you can serve from. And that's just not me giving you some advice like, hey, as your pastor, you probably don't want to just burn yourself out. This is really what the Bible is saying. It's right there in this passage. You're going to see the verse that goes along with it. It's part of this whole story that we see in Mark 10. But just right now, if you're writing some notes and things down, you can just write that Jesus has a sweet spot he wants you to serve from. As I said in the first message, when you look at the book of Mark, it's structured like a journey. When you go through Mark, it's not like a textbook where it's got chapters about different topics. It starts with Jesus in the wilderness. He spends 40 days in the wilderness. Then he goes on, and he has disciples. He calls them up there in Galilee. He says, listen, I want you to be fishers of men. They throw their nets down, and they start following him. Jesus does miracles. He starts talking there in Galilee. This is the Sea of Galilee. In that picture, you can see there's a bigger sea at the bottom, the Dead Sea. You go up the Jordan River. At the top, there's the Sea of Galilee. But even north of that, it's sort of the foreign area. But Jesus goes north of that. He goes beyond Galilee. He becomes a foreign missionary, an international missionary in his own life. And he does things up there. In fact, this is where Peter makes the statement, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And after Jesus has spent this time outside the country, he comes back and they start heading toward Jerusalem. And you remember from the last sermon, I said Jesus is heading down there. And 3 times he's telling them, I'm going to Jerusalem because they're going to kill me. In chapter 8, he says, listen, we're going to Jerusalem. The Son of Man is going to be turned over and he's going to be put to death. 3 days later, he's going to raise from the dead. Chapter 9, same exact verse almost. He says, hey, we are going to Jerusalem. I'm going to be betrayed. I'm going to be put to death, but I will raise from the dead in 3 days. And then in chapter 10, he says the same thing. He says it's even longer this time. He says, listen, we're going to Jerusalem. I'm going to be betrayed. The Romans, they're going to beat me. They're going to spit on me. They're going to kill me. And I'm going to come back to life 3 days later. Now you would think if Jesus for 3 times has told you bad things are coming in Jerusalem, my hour has come. Before this he said, listen, we're still waiting, but when I get to Jerusalem, I'll reveal myself. Jesus is saying, my hour has come, I'm going to be revealed, but I'm going to be revealed in a different way, not in the way that you think. I'm going to be revealed because I'm going to rise from the dead. Now, you would think that if you were there and you were hearing that over and over again, it would sink through. But James and John, all they hear is, we're going to Jerusalem. Jesus is going to be revealed. So they get to Jesus and they say, hey Jesus, we've been with you for a while, haven't we? There this whole time, we're good disciples, aren't we? How about you do us a little favor, all right? When you sit on your glorious throne, we want to be on one side and on the other side. Now, it doesn't matter which side. You know, James can be here, I can be here, or we can switch. I can be here, James can be over there. Doesn't matter, up to you. But we just want the thrones beside your big glorious throne. And when you hear that, you just think like, they did not get it. So what did Jesus say to him? We read it last week. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. Now this is 10:37, and that verse is 10:45. So there's a couple of verses that happen in between here. And so we're going to kind of look at some of those today. We kind of last time jumped way to the end to the answer. But right now, I want you to look at Jesus' response in 10:38. Jesus said, you're crazy. You don't know what you're asking for. Are you capable of drinking this bitter cup? Are you capable of going through this baptism of suffering? Now, it's probably important to take this time because I think we think like, oh, this is like communion. There's a cup. This is like baptism. But this isn't it. We are pre-Jerusalem. There's no Last Supper. There isn't communion yet. That's not what it's talking about here. And the same thing with baptism. It's not talking about the simple believer's baptism where you say, I am a Christian. The bitter cup is this idea. When in the Bible times, when they would have these things they would drink out of, a lot of times stuff would settle to the bottom. And you would kind of pour off the top and everything like that. But as you got to the bottom, to the very end, that's where the nasty stuff was. Jesus is like, yeah, you've been liking this a long way down. And now we're getting to the end. And you think, hey, we're getting to the end. We're going to Jerusalem. Jesus, where's my throne? He's like, no, you don't understand. We're getting to the end. And that's where all the bad stuff is. That's the bitter stuff. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to die. Are you able to go through that with me? And then this idea of baptism is this idea. When you get baptized, you go under the water. Now, sometimes when people go under the water, they're pretty cool, and then they come back up. But what happens to some people when they go under the water? It's just like, oh, I'm dying. Because you are being smothered, and you can't breathe. And this water is all around you, and you're just like holding on. You're like, is it going to get through? Is it going to get through? Is it going to get through? That's what Jesus describes suffering like. Suffering that's smothering, that's killing you, that you can't breathe. Suffering so much that Jesus was going to give up his life. And he's like telling them, said, listen, you think, hey, Jesus, I'm just asking for a favor. Hey, do your disciples a strong one here. Give me a solid, All we're asking for is a couple of thrones. You can decide where they are. And Jesus said, you have no idea. I've said over and over again, I'm going to Jerusalem to die. I'm going to get raised from the dead. I'm going to Jerusalem. They're going to betray me. But I'm going to come back to life. The Romans are going to beat me. They're going to do all this bad stuff. But I am going to be successful and I'm going to be revealed. And all you guys are thinking about is, hey, what's in it for me? Give me something. And that's why I said last time, I said they were looking for the home run ball, and Jesus was telling them there was a ransom to be paid. Jesus said, listen, are you able to deal with this suffering? Are you able to deal with this bitter cup? And they said, yeah, Jesus, no problem, no problem. And I think it's easy because Jesus didn't say, listen, you really don't know what you're talking about, so you telling me yes doesn't make you feel any better. Jesus responded to it with this verse in Mark 10:40. Jesus said, listen, you're saying that now. I know what's really going to happen. You don't know what's going on at all. But he said, listen, even if you would say that you could do it, I can't promise you those thrones. I can't promise you those seats. Because in Mark 10:40, he said this, God has prepared places for those he has chosen. And I think that that's an important thing. And I think it kind of gets lost in this whole story about Jesus going to Jerusalem and dying and the audacity of these disciples to ask for this stuff and Jesus' response. Right there, tucked in Jesus' answer. They gave an answer, and this is Jesus' response. And Jesus said, hey, listen, it's not my place. I can't do that for you. Because listen, God has prepared places for those that he has chosen. And that's why our sermon and sentence today is that God has a sweet spot for you. God has prepared a place where he wants you to be. God has a spot just for you, and guess what? That spot is a place to serve. When you think about this verse about being servants and serving others, Jesus is saying God has a spot for you, and it's a place of service. And that goes against sometimes what we want, because, oh, God has a spot for me. It's up here in the limelight. Finally, somebody's going to appreciate just all this stuff. God's going to do it. And God says, I've got a spot for you. But it's down here. It's serving. It's being with people. It's going through this with them. Just like Jesus was there with his disciples and all that stuff that they went through, he went through it with them. Just like when they came up with all this crazy talk and all this other stuff, he didn't say, you guys don't get it. Just stay here. I'll go to Jerusalem on my own. You're not that much use. Jesus was there with them the whole time. He was there serving because Jesus had a spot and it was a place to serve. And Jesus said, listen, if I'm your master and I can serve you, then you can be a servant to each other. You can be a servant to all. If you want to be the greatest among you, then you need to become everyone's servant. And so as we kind of come here in the application, I think we've seen the point. The disciples are there. They've asked for thrones. Jesus is telling them about the ransom. He's telling them about being servants. And he's saying, listen, God has a spot that he's prepared. He's chosen you. You are his, and he has a spot just for you. And so now in the application, I want us to think about us and like, what does that spot mean for me? There's a truth that's true for all of us, but there's an application that's just there for you. The truth is that we said earlier, God has a spot, it's a place to serve. He's made that spot for you. But each of us serve differently. Each of us have a place that we feel like we really plug in best. So we want to talk a little bit about, what do I mean when I say a sweet spot? We know that when it comes to baseball, that about 2/3 of the way down, there's a spot about that big on a bat, sometimes a little bit smaller like that. And that's where, when you swing, it gives the most force and it knocks the most energy into the ball. You can't hit it anywhere there. There is a spot that you really find is that's where you get the most. In our own lives, it's the same thing. We have all this stuff going on, and we're trying to kind of come to a bullseye. We're trying to find a spot there we do. And so we just want to ask some questions of that. And one of the first questions is, what really burdens you? What really makes you get emotional? Sometimes makes you get upset. Sometimes something that you're passionate about. I know as you've talked to Michelle, I think like we do a lot of things with kids, and especially the unsaved. And that's something that's a passion to us, and it's a burden to us. And we'd be doing that, whether we're here or not. We feel like this is something that really needs to be done. And if we don't do it, there's not like somebody else is going to do it. And you probably have things that are like that in your own life. I really feel passionate about this. I feel burdened about this. And sometimes it might be the music. Sometimes it might be the teaching. Sometimes it might be the finances. I know that some of you are like that about encouragement. Because you go out of your way and say, yeah, Pastor, we really want to encourage you. And I know, well, that's important to you. Because you don't want people to be discouraged. And you feel like this is something that burdens me. So I want to make something better from it. And that kind of leads you right to that next question. Well, what blesses other people? Because there are times when we're burdened about stuff. But it always is a blessing. Oh, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. That's not blessing anybody. You know what I mean? This is how it is. That's just complaining. That's just kind of being irritable or grouchy or whatever you want to say. And God didn't say, hey, I called you to be a grouch. God has said, I've called you to be a servant. So what is it that you're burdened about? And what is it that's really blessing other people? What is it that makes a difference in other people's lives? I know that people, when these things happen, they feel really good about them. Even like I was saying about children. And you talk to people and you try to help their kids out. That's important to them because they want to do stuff for their kids. They want to make sure that their kids have stuff. And if you join with them, they say, man, that's really important to me. Thank you for being that blessing. We want to do stuff that blesses other people. But even here, sometimes you can do things, but you can do it the wrong way, the wrong motives, and you can kind of be a little shady about it and stuff like that. So it's not just about, oh, look at all this stuff that we're doing. It's about what's really honoring to God. Because we want God to be happy with anything we do. If God comes in and He looks at us, hey, well done. And we say that kind of as a cliche, but God is always here and He's always looking. It's not like we're hiding from Him. Is God happy with the things that He sees going on? So here are your questions. What burdens you? What's going to bless other people? And what's going to honor God? So what I've done is I've kind of taken those three questions and I've kind of tried to visualize them for you in this thing right here we call a Venn diagram. I have a daughter, Olivia, and she loves her Venn diagrams. I think it's the engineer in her. So if you look there are three circles. One circle just says what calls to you. If maybe burden is a little bit too strong of a word. What calls out to you? What's something that you notice? Something that catches your attention? What calls to you? And then there's another circle up there that says what blesses others? And over there's another circle that says what honors God. And like we said, 2 out of 3 is not bad, but we want to shoot for 3 out of 3. And so you look at that and you see there's a spot there where all 3 of these things converge on top of each other. These things honor God, they bless others, and they're within your ability to do it. If it's not within your ability to do it, you can't do it. If you have the ability to do it, but it really isn't going to help anybody, I have the thing. You might be able to say, oh, I'm helping people, but yeah, it's not really spiritual in any way. We want to make sure that it has a spiritual focus and a spiritual nature to the things that we do. When people say, why did you give us that glass of water on the rail trail? It's more than like, hey, we're awesome people. How about that, We sit down and we say, we're blessing you because we want to honor God. And the Bible says that not even a glass of water given in my name will lose its reward. Does it call to you? Does it bless others? Does it honor God? If it kind of fits in and it converges with all those things, I'm calling it your sweet spot. And as I said today, I think God wants us to serve out of our sweet spot. He wants to serve out of our giftedness. He wants to serve out of a calling and a desire much more than He wants us to serve out of guilt. And I know sometimes in churches, guilt becomes the number one thing. Well, don't you want to do this? Oh, you're a terrible person if you don't do that. That's just a different version of the first sermon, where you're serving because you think you're getting something out of God. Oh, I'm going to serve and God's going to do all this great stuff. This is like, I'm going to serve because all this bad stuff's going to happen. Service is not something that you should be guilted into, because some people serve that way, but they start burning out. They start getting tired. And so it's like, oh, no, I don't want to do that anymore. Oh, God, God, don't ask me to do that. I can't. We want you to serve from a sweet spot, not from guilt, not from trying to get God's favor, not from trying to earn your salvation. We want you to say, God has done so much for me. He's blessed me so much here. I've got all this that I want to give back to Him. And God calls us to serve that way. So you in your own life have that unique thing. I said earlier, there's a truth here. There's a timeless truth. God, Mark 10:40, God has a special spot for those He has chosen. What is your spot? Think of it like this. And then think of it in the way of the church. This is sort of the individual side now. Now we're going to kind of give you the group side. I know that some people, they say, Dan, I'd like to help out in church. What goes on in a church? And this is usually my go-to answer. Some of you, I've already heard this from him. It's just a go-to thing. When you look at your bulletin there, if you pull your bulletin out and you look at it, it says the order of worship that's there. It looks like that worship service. It starts with a welcome. Do you realize that we need people in this church in hospitality? We need people who are greeting. We need people who will make sure the welcome desk is set up and good. I appreciate that. I love how it changes with decorations. We get stuff up here, makes us feel very welcome. The house, or the house of God, the church building looks really nice. All that stuff is set up. And then there's people there to give you a bulletin, and they smile, and they say, sometimes they'll chat with you a little bit. Hey, how's it going? And, oh, yeah, let me help you out with that. Let me hold the door open for you. You got something? That's welcome. We need people who do that. And it goes all the way to the cleaning of things, people who look after stuff and things like that. And then it's interesting sometimes after a communion service, we'll see people and they'll go through and they're like picking up all the little cups because they know, hey, well, make sure that all this stuff is taken care of. That's probably because they know. If you come in and you kind of see like, ooh, this doesn't look right, or ooh, something smells, oh, it's the communion cup from last week. And it's going to be a little put off. So all of that comes together. When we talk about welcome, we need decorating, we need people to welcome and greeters, we need to be greeters, we need people who will help get people to the right place. Oh, you're looking for this, oh, you're looking for this person, they'll get you to the right person. We're looking for people like that, even all the way down to keeping things clean and making sure everything looks good. So when you look at your worship thing, you can go over and you see there's a service team that corresponds with it. Welcome goes to hospitality. And there's an easy way to get involved with that because there is a sign-up sheet out on the welcome desk right now. And you can just sign up and say, I'm going to bring something, all right? I'm going to bring this, I'm going to bring that, whatever it is. And everybody works together because it's really nice when we go back. And that Sunday, when it's that day, we're not having Sunday school. And if you want to get here a few minutes early, you can help us set up and put everything out and do all that. Miss Carol's the one that's in charge of that. And if you say, hey, I'd like to help out with that, I'm sure she would love to have you be a part of that hospitality group. So we have a welcome, and then what's the next thing there in the praise service? Usually is praise songs. So we'll sit there and we'll sing some songs. And we have some great music. I really appreciate that. I feel that it's one of those things where it's part of what's going on. And just as Adam was sharing today, the stuff that we're doing is based on stuff that's from the Bible. And, a lot of times in songs, people would be singing songs that were scripture. And the stuff that we sing is like that. It's based on the Word of God. It's on ideas that are theologically correct. And it's a good mix. I feel like when you look at a church, if you're up here from my side and you look out, there'd be a good mix of people. There's people from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different ages. There's a whole bunch of people right here. If you look at that and you say you've got a mix in your church congregation, you've got a mix of people, your singing is going to be a mix too. And so our singing here is kind of a mix. There's some stuff that is hymns and there's some stuff that's praise, and they get mixed in different ways. I think we did praises today during the middle, but I think we have a hymn at the invitation. So there's usually something here that everybody can be a part of, because we want you to participate in it. We don't want you just to sit back and, oh, they're singing, I don't want to do this. We want everybody to sing. Even if it's not your favorite song, you can sing the stuff and you enjoy it. But that's the way everything is. There's nothing ever going to be everything. I'll say the same thing about the potluck. We'll have people come and you'll go through the potluck and everybody who brought that is a little bit different. And you'll say, peas? Who brings peas to the potluck? Cover those things in gravy, put some french fries on top of them. Let's don't ever eat those things. But if there's somebody that's their favorite thing, oh, I love it. It's like, thank goodness I get them at church. I don't ever get these things in my house, We do that. And there's different ways to be involved. And there's upfront ways, there are ways in the seats, there's ways back here with music. I really appreciate Joel. Today he did the guitar, and we had Tom over here on the drums. That just adds a lot to me. I like the singers. They all sing in parts. Sometimes it's a little hard to see because it kind of all gets in the mix. But sometimes when you listen, you can say, oh, this person's singing this part, and this person's singing this part. They kind of harmonize real well. And you're like, man, it just sounds so good when you do that. Adam's doing a good job keeping everybody together, keeping things going and stuff like that. That's a real team. And you can be a part of that. If this is something that calls to you and you feel this is your sweet spot, you can be involved in that. You can be helping out with that in different ways. No one's going to hold you back. No one's going to say, oh, no, you got to audition. We got to hear your talent. Oh, thumbs down. You are not going through to the next round. No golden ticket for you, Michael. We are going to kick you out. It's not like that. God has a sweet spot. He wants you to be in that spot. And there's crazy. I'm just going to share this just as a little thought. This is not normally part of the message, but it's kind of off topic. But I'll tell you that I'm here on Wednesday nights. Sometimes Michelle and I will come in and Michelle they practice on Wednesday nights. So we'll come in Wednesday nights for practice, and I'm not on the team, but I'm back there. But there's such a good camaraderie here. It's really like a small group. And if you've ever been in part of a small group where everybody cares about each other and it's just fun. They have like inside jokes and they have stuff that they do. It's really just a great thing to be part of. And I feel like, yeah, really. And I'm telling you that because it's a side of church that I think is really important to have. You know what I mean? If your only part of church is come in here and it's quiet and you listen to me talk, that's just not really what church is. You should be cracking some jokes. You should be doing some stuff with people. You should be having fun and all that. And so this praise team is like that. And so I feel like, you might say, oh, he's asking for this or this. I'm standing up here asking you on behalf of the church to be a part of these things. There's no doubt about it. I'm up here and I'm saying, I'm asking you to serve. But at the same time, I'm not saying service is going to stink. I'm going to say that there's a sweet spot and you're going to get something that's showing up Sunday morning isn't going to get it. If you're looking for Sunday morning to be the end all, it's not. As church gets bigger and stuff happens on a big level, church has to get smaller and happen on a smaller level. We do praise team because it's small level and there's a lot of camaraderie. But singing songs is really big. It's a big group. We do all stuff together. And it sounds great when everybody's singing. There's just an energy and electricity in the air. There's a great spirit about that. Those two things go together. So that's a different sermon. We'll move on to missions because I don't want to be late. We have a welcome, we have a time of singing, and then we have time of missions. Miss Jones just gave me the list of items that are coming up. We try to have a calendar of missions that you can get involved with. If you look at your bulletin, you're going to see we have a Life Path trip the Tuesday after the anniversary Sunday. They've got a new building. They're going to give us a tour. And so we want to be a part of that. That's something that everybody can be involved in. So if you're here, you're free on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock, you can come. But we want missions to be not just, well, that's those missionaries over there, they do that. We want everybody to have a mission in their life. Everybody to be doing stuff. Just like Lauren shared today about inviting people to this concert, which is also an outreach and things like that. We want to make missions a part of that. But in order for those things to get organized and happen, you have to have a missions team. You have to have point people who are putting the calendar together, who are organizing stuff, putting it there, and we'll try to hold it up in front of you. I've kind of made a commitment. Each week I want to have in some way, shape, or form, sometime during the service that we think about missions. And I've kind of made that promise to God, but I really think, it would be great if there were some people that would say, you know what, we're going to own that time of the service, and we're going to help put together. Because it's almost the same thing with prayer. I'm going to jump to children, because it's sort of the same thing. We're doing prayer here and stuff, but it should just be more than just, the pastors have a pastoral prayer. We do our pastoral prayer at the end of missions time. When we do the prayer request time, that should be for anybody. If there's people who say, I would really like to come up here and handle prayer requests or share with that or be a part of a prayer team. Because we really need to have a group of people who said, you know what, my burden in this church is that Gunpowder would be a praying church. In order for Gunpowder to be a praying thing, we've got to put these things together to make sure that they can do it. So you'd have the people here, you'd have that, but they could be writing up the requests, they could be putting stuff up on the board, they could be, just like we had the journals and special prayer emphasis. These are all types of things that are going on. We don't really have this right now in our church. This is something that we're trying to start and get off. So you can kind of see, missions is something that we already have. We have a calendar, we have these things, you can just jump in. But prayer needs that same sort of structure. Prayer needs that same sort of work and coordination. And so we're trying to say, just like we need to have missions and sharing is important, we need to have a time of prayer and care that go along with that. So we want to make sure those two things go together. And so you kind of, either at different points in the service, but they're the same model or same paradigm is what I'm saying. Let's jump to Children's Church there in the middle, because it covers more than that. It's really working with kids and the teams. And I just want to say here, just thank you to the people, because we have a lot of people who are helping out with this. Because we have Sunday school, and we have nursery, and we have Children's Church. So there are 3 things that are happening with kids each week. And we have people who kind of pull into all of that. The Sunday school is sort of like you do it for about 2 months. You do about 6 or 8 weeks. I'm doing it right now. I've been doing about an 8-week series on the miracles and teachings of Jesus. We were talking about it today. Like when you look at Jesus, he does miracles and he does teachings, and they kind of go together. So like Jesus is teaching about God, and you say, well, that's really interesting, Jesus, but why should we believe you? Well, here's the miracle that proves I'm God. And in the same way, when you look at the miracles, and people are like, this is great, these are miracles. Jesus, wait. There's something I want to teach you from this. And it comes back to truth. So those things are tied together. So I'm doing a series. Cameron is going to be the next Sunday school teacher, and he's going to go through Esther. He's got a CEF lesson on Esther, and he's going to go through and share all that. That's going to start after the anniversary Sunday and such. So we're doing this, but everybody's taking turns. Even, like I said, Cameron and I are helping out. We have a Children's Church, which is a similar thing, where there's about 4 of us. Like Lori went out, we have Shelby and Lauren, Cameron and I, and then we have nursery, which is about 5 people, or 5 teams that are doing that. It's really easy to get in and be involved. We have a plan. You just kind of got to punch the clock. Sometimes it's not like an entrepreneur where you got to build the business from scratch. You just go in and you punch the clock. And that's what we're trying to do with children's ministry, because we don't want to say, hey, good luck, I hope you have a bachelor's degree in LA, because if you don't, there's no way you can come up with a lesson plan. We don't want to say that. We want to say the plans are made, the things are there. You just need to go in and just find your spot. And that kind of takes me into the message right now. And I don't think anybody is wanting to preach that isn't already getting a chance, because Cameron preaches once a month, and I preach the other times. But I do want to highlight at this point a side of church that a lot of times doesn't get noticed. It's very easy to notice the guy up front talking right now. And you're not going to notice the AV team unless my mic gets out, or the pictures go, I go, what's going on, like that, And I'm going to tell you that the truth is that both are needed, and a lot of times they're 2 different people. There are some people who are behind the scenes people. There are people who are like, I'm a background person, I like to work in the background and do stuff like that. Everything in church is not being up front. It's not being a children's church teacher. It's not being a Sunday school teacher. There's a lot of stuff that are background type things. And that's true. That's one of them. And some of it is not even as technical. Like you walk back there at the soundboard, oh my goodness, this is a giant soundboard. There's a grid. Like, oh, I can't touch this. Well, we have a Facebook page. And I know some people love Facebook. And I know Dave right now is doing Facebook, but he's like, I would love to let somebody really into Facebook to do our Facebook page. We have a website, and Tom's our website person, but I know he would be like, oh, I'd be happy if you'd be developing some things for that. I know right now Cameron is trying to work on a history of the church. And so when you come here for Anniversary Sunday, you'll have one bulletin that's like the service bulletin, but you'll get a second bulletin, and that bulletin will be the history of the church. One of the hopes of Cameron doing that is that we can put that on our website, and so you can do that. But you know, just take some time and work, and just take somebody that's important to them, and we'll put that on. Putting pictures on the websites, yeah, you need to take the pictures and then share them. You know, hey, I took some great pictures of you this. Well, send them to this person because they're on our tech team. They're on an AV team. They're on our media team. And so it's kind of all blurry right now because we're just trying to cover things. But we want to make sure that people who say, I like doing this, I'm a little bit nerdy, this kind of makes me feel good when I talk about all this stuff. No one else wants to listen. I love that with Cameron serving last week. Have you ever met those car people? It's like, they tell you, it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about, you know what I mean? Those people have a sweet spot, just like anybody else. And God wants them to serve there. Lastly, we talk about the offering. We take up the offering in the church. We don't pass the plates out since COVID. But the box is back there. We make notes of it. We have online giving now. It's just kind of easy. Just go in. You can set it up to reoccur like every month. It'll just do the same thing again and again. But you know what? The offering that is given gets counted. And it takes an offering team to count that and to make sure everything's good. Because you got to make sure all that stuff's above board. You don't want one person going, oh yeah, we got a little less offering this week. It's like, it's one of those deals where it's everything we do is transparent and can see, even like the way we budget, there's a budget sitting out there, and you can see all the money that's made and all the money that comes in and all goes out. That's because you got administration teams. You got a treasurer, you've got people that take care of that, and we want people to come in and do that. I really appreciate the admin people who work here, the people who count the money. They have to go deposit it too. You know, they have to go sometime during the week. It's not just a Sunday thing. They have to go during the week and deposit it, keep track of the books, and do those type of things. They need receipts. In fact, I have a receipt I have to turn in myself, you know. But I'm happy. I can put that in the mailbox, and it'll get taken care of. Everything will be good. Even the things of, I appreciate Sue Norman, because the things with bulletins and these other things, that's a admin duty. And so I'd like right now, again, I'm kind of doing the bulletin, but I've kind of done it because when I first showed up, we didn't have a computer or a copier, but we have both of those things now. And so it should be very easy to come in and just be able to print it and write it and do that and just be able to collate that. So the bulletin would be an admin duty, just like some of these other things. So when you look through the worship service that's there, we have a welcome, we have praise, we have missions, we have children's church, we have a prayer time, we have a message, we have an offering. Every one of those things that you think through in the service, there is a team that goes with it. And I know I've talked about a lot of different things. It's probably hard to write some of it down, but if you look at the back page of the bulletin, it just has a little thing that says spots to serve. And so I've tried to highlight some of these things because, like we were saying earlier, God has a sweet spot. He wants you to serve in that sweet spot. The title of today's sermon is called Put Me In, Coach. And I think that's how it is. You know, when you're playing baseball, these other sports, and you see stuff out there, you have some people that are like, oh, don't put me in there. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to do all this. But I think God wants us to have that desire that it says, put me in, coach. You're not going to do that if you feel like you're going to fail or you're going to strike out or anything bad's going to happen. But when you feel that you're in your sweet spot, you're doing what God called you to do, you're blessing other people, you're part of this team, you're working together, you're seeing good things happen, that's when you say, put me in, coach. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. And I hope as we come to the end of the sermon that you guys are feeling that in your heart. James and John, they had this idea, put me in, coach, meant, hey, put me up on a throne, God. I'm ready to sit on my throne. And God said, no. You don't know what you're talking about. That's just crazy. You need to become a servant. But the good news is that God has a special place for each of us to serve. God's chosen you. He's made you special. He's got a special spot that you can serve. He's waiting for you to say, put me in, coach. Let me serve. Let me do that. So as we come to the invitation here, there's just some reflective questions for you. Number one, are you in God's family? This hasn't been the evangelism message. That was the first one to share. But it's still true today. You can't really serve until you've got Jesus in your life empowering you to serve. Why do we serve? Because Jesus served us. And he gives us the power to be a servant. The second thing we ask is, are you in a place of service? And I know what today's message is. I was like, I do all this stuff for the church, and he just asked everybody to do this. He's like, no, I tried to thank, as I went through, I tried to thank as many people as I could. If I didn't thank you, I'm sorry that I left you out. But we really appreciate the people. This church does wonderful things, and I use it a lot as an illustration, but when you look at VBS, we have more adults than kids because we have such a heart to serve. So when you hear me talk about serving, it's not like, well, these churches over here are serving and you need to be like this. That's not it at all. I think that our church serves, especially per capita, more than just any church I even know. And people do it with such a good heart and a willingness. People give money. They do things already. So are you in a place of service? I know a lot of people are, and I want to thank you for that. But really the last question you want to ask yourself is, are you in a sweet spot? Are you in a sweet spot where you're with other people? Are you in a sweet spot where you're feeling like, man, God, He made me for this. God, way to go. You let me do this. God allowed me to touch this and do these type of things. God has me there. That's what we want for you guys. Everybody in this church, we should all want this for each other. We should say, this is what God's called us to. This is what we want to be. And by God's grace, we will. So we're going to ask that your heads are bowed and your eyes are closed. You have a little time right here just to think about what God is saying in your heart. The team's going to come and they're going to sing the invitation. If you need to come forward and make something public, that's what the invitation is for. It lets you just stay in front of the whole church and just say your piece of what's going on. If you sit down and say, I don't want this to be public, but I need to tell you, Dan, about something, write it on one of those cards, drop it in there, I'll get the card, we can talk about it later. But maybe you just need to sit down and talk with God. And just as you sing and you're going through this, let them lead your heart to be talking to God. And just tell God, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play today. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to do what you've called me to do. I'm ready to serve you. Make that be your answer during this invitation.